Welcome to True Crime Cases, in which we dive deep into the maximum shocking and complicated crimes. Nowadays, we uncover the tragic and complicated story of Richard Engelbert, a successful real property agent whose hidden life and secrets caused his brutal homicide. Richard Engelbert changed into a 48-year vintage man residing in Littleton, Colorado. He became a real property agent inside the network, regularly seen driving around in his glossy black automobile with a registration code attractive realtor showing homes to customers. Richard became married to Wendy, a faculty principal, and had a stepson named Harrison. He graduated from the College of Colorado with a diploma in business and have been in the actual estate commercial enterprise for over 20 years. Human beings in Littleton depended on Richard because he continually appeared pleasant and dependable. Richard lived in a massive two-tail house with a properly manicured lawn. His acquaintances often saw him operating inside the backyard, greeting them with a heat smile and a wave. He became involved in local occasions and charity fundraisers, frequently sponsoring nearby Little League teams and attending church on Sundays. Richard appeared to have the ideal life with a lovely home, a successful career, and a loving circle of relatives. However, Richard had a mystery existence for the beyond years. He had been in a sexual dating with his stepson, Harrison. Richard stored this courting hidden from each person, fearing it might destroy his reputation and career. Similarly to this, he endured to meet other guys for intercourse through his work, the use of the homes he showed as mystery meeting locations. These double lives created a variety of strain and tension for Richard. Within the days before his death, Richard changed into busy with paintings, ultimate offers, and meeting customers. He spent long hours on the office and frequently came domestic past due. He became looking forward to a weekend getaway to the Bahamas, along with his spouse Wendy, hoping to relax and overlook about his issues for a while. Richard became additionally making plans to wait a 4th of July barbecue at a chum's house, where he anticipated to seize up with vintage pals and enjoy some time away from his stressful lifestyles. Richard's buddies defined him as charismatic and charming. He had a manner of making humans sense cozy and critical. In spite of his friendly outside, Richard became deeply via his hidden life. He felt guilty, approximately his affair with Harrison and the lies he informed to maintain it a mystery. He became additionally worried, approximately Wendy locating out, fearing it could break their marriage and his standing in the network. In his last days, Richard turned into a man below pressure, looking to juggle his public personality with this personal turmoil. His dreams of a best life had been slowly unraveling, leading to a tragic and violent cease on June 27, 2014, around 3 the murder p.m. Wendy Engelbert, back early from her job as a school essential, she changed into searching forward to a relaxing night. Maybe watching a few suggests on Netflix and catching up on her favorite book as she walked through the front door in their residence on Bleak Road in Littleton, Colorado. The whole lot appeared normal in the beginning. She placed her keys on the kitchen counter and called out for Richard. However, there was no solution, feeling a bit uneasy. Wendy decided to test the basement where Richard frequently frolicked, operating on his real estate documents or watching the records channel. As she descended the stairs, she noticed that the basement door was barely ajar, which was uncommon. She referred to as his name again, Lutter this time, however. Nonetheless, no response while she reached the bottom of the stairs. She became met with the scene of horror. Richard's dead body was sprawled at the ground, surrounded by way of signs and symptoms of a violent war. There had been blood stains on the carpet and furnishings, and Richard's face turned into bruised and battered. A men's luxurious belt turned into wrapped tightly around his neck, without a doubt used to choke him to death. Wendy screamed in terror and rushed to her husband's aspect, shaking him and desperately seeking to wake him up. However, it was too past due. In a state of shock and disbelief, Wendy grabbed her cellular telephone and dialed 911. Her palms trembled as she spoke to the operator, her voice cracking with emotion. "My husband is useless. I think he's been murdered." she cried, suffering to trap her breath. The operator attempted to calm her down and informed her to stay on the line till the police arrived. Wendy's neighbor, Lubby Johnson G., heard the commotion and got here over to see what changed into occurring. She discovered Wendy sitting on the front steps, sobbing uncontrollably. Lubby stayed with Wendy, trying to consolation her even as they waited for the police. The minutes felt like hours, and Wendy's thoughts raced with questions about who could have executed this and why. When the police sooner or later arrived, they speedily secured the scene and escorted Wendy and Lubby far from the basement. Wendy Indy was in a nation of shock, barely able to realize what had just passed off. She saved repeating who might do that to Richard time. And again, once more, her mind unable to technique the brutal reality of her husband's death. The invention of Richard's frame sent shockwaves through the quiet community of Littleton. Information of the homicide unfold quick, with pals and pals collecting outside the Engelbert home, trying to make sense of the tragedy that had struck their reputedly best community. The investigation on June 27, 2014 at 3:15 p.m. The Littleton Police Department received a frantic 911 call from Wendy Engelbert. Officers arrived on the scene within minutes, led by Detective James Cattle, a seasoned investigator recognized for his meticulous method. The Engelbert domestic, located at the quiet OK Street, become quickly surrounded by way of police vehicles, and yellow crime scene tapete turned into stretched around the perimeter. Detective Farm Animals and his team entered the basement, wherein they had been faced with a grisly scene. Richard Engelbert's frame lay on the ground, with a guy's luxurious belt wrapped tightly round his neck. Bloodstains have been seen on the carpet and nearby fixtures, indicating a violent struggle. Detective Farm Animals, a sprig guy in his overdue 40s with sharp eyes and a relaxed demeanor, took inside the scene with a steely resolve. The police began their investigation. By way of gathering proof, they photographed the scene from various angles, documenting every detail. The belt utilized in the homicide became carefully bagged as evidence, and detectives searched for fingerprints and other clues that could cause the killer. Detective Farm Animals referred to the overturned furniture and signs of a conflict, indicating that Richard had fought for his life. Forensic experts arrived to technique the scene, the use of luminol to come across bloodlines and gathering samples for DNA evaluation. They meticulously calmed the place for hair fibers and some other capability evidence. The brutality of the murder bowled over even the most experienced officials, but they remained centered on accumulating all the records they may. Detective Cattle interviewed Wendy Engelbert, who became nevertheless in surprise from discovering her husband's frame. She defined her day and the horrifying second she observed Richard. Her account becomes specific and emotional, but she insisted she had no concept who should have completed this. Wendy's alibi turned into fast established, as she had been at work at the time of the murder. Subsequent, the police commenced canvassing the neighborhood. They spoke with buddies, which includes Lubby Johnson. Gant could come to Wendy's aid. Sarah defined hearing Wendy's screams and locating her at the front steps. Distraught and incoherent, different pals cited seeing Richard earlier in the day, but not anything regarded out of the normal. The police also checked Richard's latest smartphone and email information, hoping to locate any leads. They found numerous suspicious messages and calls suggesting that Richard had been assembly with diverse men for illicit intercourse. This revelation brought a new layer to the research, pointing to capacity motives associated with Richard's hidden lifestyles. As the day turned into night, the police persisted, their work determined to discover the character chargeable for Richard Engelbert's brutal murder. The scene became cleared, and Detective Farm Animals and his crew reviewed the evidence accumulated. Preparing for the subsequent steps in their investigation, the community of Littleton watched anxiously, hoping for answers in justice for Richard Engelbert, the first suspect in Richard Wendy Engelbert's murder, become his spouse. Wendy Engelbert, Wendy, 47, become a respected school predominant in Littleton, regarded for her intelligence and strong persona. She had been with the school district for over 15 years and changed into heavily concerned in community activities. Her colleagues described her as devoted and authoritative, always striving for excellence. Wendy became introduced in for questioning the day after the murder on June 28. 2014, Detective James Livestock led the interrogation, seeking to piece collectively her moves and feelings. Wendy regarded, exhausted, and distraught. However, she responded questions lightly. She stated her day at paintings and the frightening discovery of Richard's frame, whilst she lower-back domestic. No matter her composed demeanor, Wendy's anger and confusion glaring, she expressed disbelief and frustration over the affair. Insisting she had no concept, Richard turned into sexually involved with different men. The revelation of the affair introduced anxiety to the interrogation. As Detective Farm Animals probed deeper into Wendy's emotions about her husband's betrayal, Detective Livestock asked Wendy approximately her relationship with Richard. She admitted they have a sturdy partnership, but noted that they had faced some demanding situations these days. Wendy claimed she changed into unaware of Richard's mystery life. She explained she had recent ski injury, which had triggered her difficulty in reading humans' moves, and suggested this might be why she neglected any signs of Richard's double existence. Wendy's alibi was solid. She had been at the college all day, attending meetings and preparing for the imminent college. Our colleagues and protection photos showed her presence at paintings throughout the time of the homicide, though her connection to the sufferer made her a person of hobby. Detective Livestock also explored Wendy's feasible MTI. Her reputation and profession were critical to her, and Richard's affair threatened each, but Wendy firmly denied any involvement inside the murder, retaining her innocence in the course of the thinking. She was cooperative and supplied all requested information, such as get entry to her telephone and emails. The police carried out a thorough search of the Engelbert home, searching out any proof that would link Wendy to the crime. They observed nothing incriminating, reinforcing her alibi and statements. Nevertheless, the detectives remained careful, conscious that feelings could pressure even the most rational people to dedicate determined acts. Wendy became launched after several hours of wondering, but she remained underneath scrutiny as the investigation endured. The police kept a near watch on her, tracking her interactions and actions, even as they explored other leads. The homicide of Richard Engelbert changed into proving to be a complex case with layers of secrets and techniques and reasons slowly unraveling Harrison Engelbert Richards. Harrison Engelbert, 21-year-old stepson, changed into the following suspect. Harrison became a college scholar and part-time bartender. Recognized for his past, he had been in and out of rehab and 12-step packages as a teen. In spite of those demanding situations, Harrison decided to show his lifestyles around and began pursuing a degree in psychology at a nearby network college on June 28, 2014. Harrison brought in for questioning Detective James Farm Animals, privy to the touchy nature of Harrison's courting. With Richard approached the interrogation with warning, Harrison seemed anxious but cooperative, inclined to share his side of the story. Harrison admitted to the police that he had been in a secret sexual courting along with his stepfather. For the past years, he described feeling conflicted, suffering with the deceit and secrecy. Harrison found out that he had currently broken off the affair after discovering that Richard had been dishonest on him with dozens of different guys using homes he showed as an actual property agent as mystery assembly locations. At some stage in the interrogation, Harrison expressed a mix of anger and sadness. He felt betrayed by using Richard, no longer most effective due to the affair, but additionally because of the lies and manipulation. No matter his resentment, Harrison claimed he had no intention of harming Richard. He stated that he had been bartending at the nighttime of the homicide, and numerous witnesses showed his ally Detective Farm Animals delved deeper into Harrison's possible reasons. The young man's history of emotional turmoil and substance abuse raised concerns. However, his current efforts to live sober and centered on his studies painted a unique image Harrison turned into, open about his struggles and his preference to move forward away from the toxic courting with Richard. The police also tested Harrison's digital devices and social media bills, searching out any proof of his involvement within the crime. They discovered messages between him and Richard that confirmed anxiety and struggle, but nothing that immediately implicated him in the murder. Harrison's DNA become found of the crime scene, however, as he lived within the residence. This become not sudden. Harrison's cooperation and constant alibi made it tough for the police to pin the crime on him. He become released after numerous hours of wondering. However, he remained a key discern within the investigation. The police persisted to monitor his sports and interactions, searching for any inconsistencies or new evidence that might shed light on his involvement. The complicated dynamics among Richard and Harrison introduced a layer of complexity to the case, leaving Detective Cattle and his group with more questions than answers. As they preserved to dig deeper, they desired to discover the reality behind Richard Engelbert's brutal homicide. Howdy, authentic crime case solvers, inquisitive about extra-actual existence. Homicide, Alexa Hernandez. Mysteries, be sure to love and join our channel. And do you have got any mind about this case, or have a case of your personal you want us to research? Go away. Us a remark, live, secure, proper. Crime case solvers. Alexa Hernandez, 30, changed into the 0.3 suspect in the investigation. Alexa had a history with Richard Engelbert that made her a character of hobby. She had once caught Richard having sex together with her husband within the toilet of the residence they were journeying collectively, which caused the quit of her marriage. Recognized for her fiery mood, Alexa had numerous confrontations with Richard because the incident on June 29, 2014, Detective James Livestock delivered Alexa in for wondering. Alexa was a waitress at a popular nearby diner and had a reputation for being outspoken and strong-willed. She walked into the interrogation room with a defiant expression, equipped to guard herself. Detective Farm Animals commenced via asking Alexa approximately her dating with Richard. She admitted that she despised him for ruining her marriage and inflicting her big emotional ache. Alexa described the day she found her husband and Richard together. Because the worst day of her existence, she had faced Richard several instances after that, worrying answers and an apology. But he had continually brushed her off whilst requested about her whereabouts on the day of the murder. Alexa said she were operating a double shift at a diner called Denny's. She furnished the names of her co-employees, who should verify her alibi. Detective Farm Animals called the diner and spoke with Alexa's manager, who confirmed that Alexa had been at paintings all day. Multiple co-people additionally showed seeing her during her shifts, regardless of her strong alibi. Detective Farm Animals explored Alexa's feasible motives. Similarly, her severe anger towards Richard turned into obvious. However, she insisted she had moved on and changed into specializing in rebuilding her existence. Alexa shared that she was taking night training at a nearby community college, hoping to come to be a social employee and help others who had long passed via comparable struggles. The police searched Alexa's domestic and automobile, looking for any proof that might hyperlink her to the crime. They observed nothing suspicious or incriminating. Alexa's cell phone information and social media hobby confirmed no touch with Richard inside the weeks leading up to the murder. For the duration of the interrogation, Alexa remained calm and composed. In spite of her apparent disdain for Richard, she responded all questions immediately and confirmed no symptoms of guilt or deception. Detective Farm Animals stated her cooperation and honesty, however, knew they needed to preserve all opportunities open. After several hours of wondering, Alexa turned into released. The police persisted to monitor her conscious that her past with Richard made her a capacity suspect, but her alibi and lack of evidence made it tough to tie her to the crime immediately. The research into Richard Engelbert's murder grew extra complicated with each interview. Detective Cattle and his team were determined to discover the truth, but the Internet of Secrets and Lee surrounding Richard's lifestyles made their challenge increasingly tough. They pressed on, hoping to discover the piece of evidence that would ultimately screen the killer. On July 3, 2014, the research took a dramatic flip. It became a hot, new proof, summer season day in Littleton, Colorado, with temperatures accomplishing the excessive 80s around 10 a.m. Detective Jing's livestock acquired a call from the forensic lab they had discovered critical new proof, even as re-examining objects from the crime scene among Richard Engelbert's property became a small hidden camera disguised as a smoke detector hooked up within the basement. Detective Livestock and his group, without delay, retrieved the footage. The digital camera had recorded the basement's activities for the past few weeks, shooting Richard's secret meetings and interactions. As they reviewed the pictures, they located a recording from the day of the murder. The video confirmed a heated argument between Richard and his stepson, Harrison Engelbert. The argument quickly escalated right into a bodily conflict in the video. Harrison grabbed the luxury belt from a nearby chair and used it to choke Richard in a suit of rage. The footage captured the whole incident, imparting plain evidence of Harrison's involvement inside the homicide. Batten was bowled over through the brutality and clear purpose in the back of the ACT anger and betrayal. With this new evidence, Detective Livestock contacted Harrison and asked him to return in for further wondering. Harrison arrived at the station blind to the video proof against him. At some point of the interrogation farm, animals faced him with the footage. Harrison's demeanor modified immediately. His initial calmness turned to panic and desperation, knowing he had been stuck. Harrison broke down and confessed he defined that he felt trapped within the courting, with Richard manipulated with the aid of each his stepfather and his mother Wendy. The steady deceit and Richard's infidelity had pushed him to his breaking point. Harrison admitted that in a second of uncontrollable rage, he had killed Richard to loose himself from the suffocating scenario. Detective Farm Animals carefully documented Harrison's confession, ensuring every detail changed into recorded, the brand new proof, combined with the confession, left no doubt approximately Harrison's guilt. The police now had a clean photograph of the activities leading as much as Richard Engelbert homicide and the complex internet of secrets and techniques and lies that had surrounded the case on July 4, 2014. Just earlier than noon, the Littleton Police Department made a decisive circulate with Harrison Engelbert's confession, and the incriminating video proof. Detective James Farm Animals and his team were ready to arrest him for the murder of Richard Engelbert Harrison. 21, a college student and component-time bartender, had been residing a life of turmoil and confusion, no matter his tries to overcome his, beyond the severe emotional pressure from his affair with his stepfather and his mom's manipulations, had pushed him to a breaking point. The police found out that Harrison, crushed by emotions of betrayal and manipulation, had killed Richard in a suit of rage at the day of the arrest. Detective Farm Animals and several officials arrived at Harrison's apartment. They knocked on the door, and Harrison, searching, faded and exhausted, responded. He was handcuffed and examined his rights. Harrison appeared resigned to his destiny, displaying little emotion as he became led to the police car. The neighborhood became quiet. However, some curious onlookers watched because the scene opened up back at the station. Harrison became formally charged with the murder of Richard Engelbert. Detective Livestock carried out a final interview to report all the details of Harris's confession. Harrison reiterated his feelings of being trapped and manipulated through Richard and compelled by his mom. Wendy, he defined the events leading as much as the murder, which includes the violent argument that had escalated into the deadly attack. Wendy Engelbert, Richard's spouse and Harrison's mom, changed into also introduced in for wondering. The investigation had found out that Wendy had known about the affair for months and had forced Harrison to keep it. She feared that Richard's reckless sexual behavior would destroy her chances in the approaching election for college superintendent. Wendy, however, changed into no longer without delay involved within the homicide. Her deception and manipulation delivered a layer of complexity to the case. However, she turned into now not charged with any crime. Richard's own family was taken aback by means of the revelations they'd seen Richard as a dedicated husband and father, unaware of his double life. The arrest of Harrison delivered a mixture of emotions: grief for Richard's death, anger at the betrayal, and a feel of tragic inevitability. Given the occasions, the network of Littleton was bowled over. Via the news, the homicide had uncovered a hidden global of secrets and techniques and lies, shaking the town to its core as Harrison awaited trial. The Engelbert-owned family and the complete community tried to come back to terms with the stunning events that had unfolded. The police had solved the case, but the emotional aftermath might linger for a long term. The reality approximately Richard's life and dying have been found out. However, the scars left in the back of might take much longer to heal. The trial of Harrison and Gilbert began on the trial. August 15, 2014, in Littleton, Colorado. The court became packed with circle of relatives, buddies, and neighborhood media, all eager to pay attention the information of the case. The trial became a good-sized occasion inside the network, drawing interest from each neighborhood and countrywide news shops. The prosecution changed into led via District Attorney Laura Mitchell, a 45-year antique, acknowledged for her strong court docket presence and determination to justice. She argued that Harrison's murder of Richard Engelbert was premeditated and driven by deep-seated anger and betrayal. She presented the hidden digital camera footage in Harrison's confession as key proof. Mitchell emphasized that Harrison's actions have been the result of a bothered and volatile courting, but ultimately he became answerable for the brutal loss of life of his stepfather. The protection changed into represented by way of non-binary advise. Z. Barnes, a 40-year antique attorney with a popularity for defending excessive profile instances. Barnes argued that Harrison's moves have been the result of intense emotional turmoil and manipulation from each Richard and his mother Wendy. They claimed that Harrison's United States intellectual country and the strain he faced made it tough for him to control his actions. Barnes sought a verdict of guilty, however, with consideration for a lesser charge, hoping for a greater lenient sentence because of the circumstances at some stage in the trial. The sufferer's family, together with Wendy Engelbert and different relatives, sat quietly, visibly distressed by using the proceedings. They'd been shocked by the revelations of Richard's double lifestyles and the turmoil it had induced. Their emotional reactions were palpable as they listened to the info of the affair and the murder on September 5, 2014. The jury, again with a verdict Harrison Engelbert, became located responsible of second-degree murder. The jury determined that while Harrison had acted in shape of rage, the killing became no longer premeditated. The decision was met with combined reactions. A few felt the verdict became simply given the emotional and psychological elements involved. Others felt it changed into too lenient, given the brutality of the crime. Harrison changed into sentenced to 25 years in jail without the possibility of parole. The sentencing delivered a sense of closure to the case, but the ache and trauma for Richard's family had been far from over. The Engelbert family struggled to locate peace, knowing that Richard's loss of life were because of someone so near them. The trial's effect prolonged beyond the court. It forced the community to confront the hidden realities of betrayal and manipulation, leaving a lasting mark on Littleton. As the case concluded, the Engelbert circle of relatives and the city of Littleton started the difficult system of restoration from the surprising occasions that had spread out after the trial. Aftermath of Harrison Engelbert concluded in September 2014. Life in Littleton, Colorado slowly started out to go back to normal, but the effect of the case lingered, the community deeply shaken by using the brutal homicide of Richard Engelbert, and the following revelations faced a protracted system of recuperation and adjustment. Harrison Engelbert, now serving a 25 to 12 months prison sentence, remained within the Colorado branch of corrections. His life behind bars was marked via the same struggles he faced out of doors, dealing with his very own emotions and the results of his moves in jail. Harrison changed into reportedly quiet and withdrawn that specialize in finishing his schooling. Via to-be-had packages he used the time to replicate on his past choices and are seeking for counseling for his emotional issues. Wendy Angelbert Richards' wife had her own challenges to stand. The trial had exposed her information of Richards' affair and her manipulative moves, which had a significant impact on her private and professional life. The scandal affected her candidacy for faculty superintendent, a position she were campaigning for diligently, despite her previous efforts to give a great image. The revelations caused her withdrawal from the race. Wendy attempted to rebuild her lifestyles away from the general public eye, searching for therapy to cope with the emotional fallout, and to cope with the impact of the scandal on her popularity in the months following the trial. Littleton started out to move forward. Though the scars of the case remained, the community held memorials and help events to honor Richard Engelbert's reminiscence and to assist the ones affected by the crime. The Engelbert family's tragedy served as a sobering reminder of the hidden struggles that can lie behind closed doorways as existence resumed its ordinary pace. The case remained a poignant chapter in Littleton's records, a reminder of the deep effect of betrayal and violence on individuals and communities alike. The story of Richard Engelbert's homicide is a tragic reminder of the complexities and hidden secrets and techniques that can lurk beneath the floor of seemingly perfect lives. It is a story of manipulation, deceit, and the devastating consequences of dwelling a double life. Thanks for joining us.